It's a new product overview video for the new American Flyer Legacy 2882 Y3 steam locomotives. Out of the package you will receive the instruction manual for the engine memory module. It's important to note that these American Flyer Y3s do not come with an engine memory module. You can discard this piece of paper. You get the smoke fluid funnel, the smoke fluid pipette, 4 replacement traction tires, the S-gauge dummy coupler for the pilot of the locomotive, which enables you to couple the front of this locomotive to the rear of another locomotive for multiple unit lash-up operations, and finally the engine instruction manual. These American Flyer Legacy Y3s feature American Flyer speed control, Legacy rail sounds, fan-driven smoke unit, die-cast boiler, die-cast tender shell, die-cast locomotive frames, a stamped metal tender frame, die-cast tender trucks, and a functioning coil coupler, as well as directional lighting. The switches for our locomotive are located underneath this long hatch on top of the cab roof. It can be a little tricky to get off without good fingernails under there, but you simply lift up to expose the switches. When adding smoke fluid to this locomotive, you only want to add smoke into the main stack. The American Flyer Y3 is equipped with 2 switches. One, which is the program run switch. This is used in a command environment to program the locomotive ID number. And finally, the smoke on-off switch, which is the master smoke on-off control. For those operators using conventional control, the program position is used as the E-unit lockout switch to allow the locomotive to run in one direction all the time. When you're in a command mode, you place that switch in program, assign the locomotive ID number, and then move the switch back to run to operate the locomotive. The engine will retain that ID number as long as you own the locomotive or until you change it in the future. The smoke on-off switch in the on position will produce smoke in a conventional environment. The off position will turn the smoke unit off for conventional operation. It's also important to note that if the smoke on-off switch is in the off position, you will not be able to control the smoke unit from the Legacy remote or the Cab 1 remote. You must have the switch in the on position to toggle between the smoke unit on at either low, medium, or high, or off if you're using Legacy or TMCC control. The water hatch on the tender is removable. It's held on with magnets, and once removed, it exposes the manual volume control potentiometer. This will be the master volume control for use in conventional operation, and it will also limit the maximum volume when being used in a command environment. Now, before we place our locomotive on the track and get it running, we want to be sure that we pre-lubricate the locomotive, just as a preventive measure. So using an oiler with a needle tip applicator, we're simply going to place a small drop of oil on the axle where it goes through the bearing in the truck frame. You want to be sure that you do this to both sides of the frame on all 4 axles on each locomotive engine. It's also a good idea to put a small drop of oil on the axle of the pilot truck and also the trailing truck, which is currently out of the screen. Because this is a steam locomotive with a lot of moving linkages on it, we want to be sure that we lubricate the side rods and side rod screws as well. So to do this, we're simply going to use our needle applicator with oil and place a small drop of oil just behind each side rod screw. For the eccentric crank, you want to make sure that you place a drop of oil between the main rod and the spacer, and then the spacer and the side rod. Do the same thing for each side rod screw, where it goes through the side rod and connects to the wheel. This will help prevent any unwanted squeaking or squealing when you're running the locomotive. And this is a good idea to perform this preventive maintenance periodically, depending upon how much you run the locomotive. After about 12 to 16 hours of operation, we would encourage you to go back and lubricate the locomotive again, just to make sure that everything is properly lubricated and not squeaking when not wanted. Now, before we place our American Flyer Y3 locomotive on the track, we need to first tell our legacy remote all the information about the locomotive. Using our numbering convention of the last 2 digits of the cab number, we're going to assign our Norfolk and Western Y3 as engine 20. So we press engine 20. Simply press the info button in the upper right hand corner and we can assign the name. To assign the name, simply press the key under name, and using the red thumb wheel, we can scroll over to N, press add, scroll over to the space key, press add, scroll over to W, the space again, we can go back to Y, and then for 3 we simply press 3 on the keypad. Now we can press the next button. Now it wants us to enter the road number. The road number of our Y3 is 2020, and we press set. Now we've set up the name and road number in the remote. By pressing the scroll button, we get to the type screen. You want to press the down arrow key until you see FPS. Press the key under FPS to select Flyer Pull More Steam. We can then press the scroll button. Make sure our control is set to Legacy, and our sounds are set to Legacy Rail Sounds. Press the info key to exit the screen, and now our keypad is set up specific to our Legacy Y3. We have volume up, crew talk, steam release, volume down. The black circle is shut down. Once we turn the thumb wheel, that black circle turns into a black triangle, which is emergency stop. When we turn the train down to stop it, it returns to a black circle, which is shut down. We have steam blow down, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. There are 3 levels of smoke, low, medium, and high. And back down again. We have Rule 17 lighting enabled, Rule 17 lighting off, engine reset, and marker lamps on and marker lamps off. If we press the speed bar, we have our 6 preset railroad speeds, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. This small bar graph in the left hand corner here is directly proportionate to the effects button up and effects button down. As I press the effects button up, you'll notice the top of the screen says labor increase and my bar graph raises. This will intensify the sound of the chuffing. By pressing effects down, it says labor decrease up on the top, and our bar graph lowers. This will lighten up the chuffing sound. And finally, that number 1 in the 0 position is roll speed. That is the slowest speed step the locomotive will attain and maintain when the speed control is enabled. To exit this screen, we simply press the aux1 key, and we're back to the engine specific icon menu. Now, before we actually program the locomotive, we want to make sure that we add smoke fluid to the smoke unit. To do this, we're using the 6-37841 Lionel Premium Smoke Fluid and the pipette that came with the locomotive. We want to put enough fluid in the pipette so it goes basically from the tip to about halfway to the first line on the pipette. Place this all the way down in the unit, and to insert the smoke fluid, with a couple puffs of air to break any meniscus that may have formed on the smoke unit funnel. We can now go ahead and remove the hatch on the top of the cab to access the program run switch. And as we mentioned before, it's a little stubborn without good sharp fingernails. Once you have that removed, place the program run switch in the program position and make sure that the smoke on-off switch is in the on position. We're going to go ahead and apply track power. Now you'll notice when track power is initially applied, nothing on the locomotive illuminates. Not the cab light, the headlight, the marker lamps, the class lamps, nothing illuminates, and this is normal. So now, using our legacy remote, we're going to press engine 20, which is what we told the remote that this locomotive will be, and we'll press the set button. The whistle confirms that the locomotive took the command, and we can now place the program run switch back into the run position. We're going to go ahead and turn the smoke unit onto the high setting, so it'll begin producing smoke as it sits here at idle. I'm going to go ahead and blow the whistle for you so you can hear all three levels of the quillable whistle. The bell. The tower comm.
This is the dispatcher. Please hold. Over. Copy that. Standing by. Out.
Crew talk.
Dispatcher, I'm running behind. Can I pull? Over. Roger that. Take the green. Over. Thank you, sir. Clear to pull. Out.
Now, once you have addressed the locomotive after power has been applied, the front headlight will illuminate, the class lamps will illuminate as well as the interior light in the cab. Go ahead and get the locomotive running forward so you can see its slow speed control. And at slow speeds, the smoke unit will puff in sync with the chuffing sound. Once I place the locomotive in reverse, my rear headlight on my tender comes on. By pressing the R button on the remote, I can open the rear coupler. You'll hear it here in just a second. That's the rear coupler opening, so I can uncouple cars anywhere on the layout. This locomotive is also equipped with something called sequence control. Sequence control is a series of sounds that are responsive to the throttle inputs. To access sequence control, you simply press and hold the aux1 or straight arrow key for 3 seconds. You'll be notified that the locomotive has entered sequence control by 2 bells and a whistle, and it works like this. The locomotive is now in sequence control. What happens within sequence control is anytime I move the throttle from stop to speed step 1, the locomotive won't actually begin moving, but it'll start gearing up to move.
I see that signal. We're good to go. Over. Roger that. Out.
That sequence there was not triggered by me. It's part of the sequence control feature. So as I go to speed step 1, and now I'll go to speed step 2, and the locomotive will begin moving. Now, the bell will turn on automatically
Out.
when the locomotive begins moving, and it will stay on until you crest speed step 33. Once you go beyond speed step 33, the bell will turn off. Any sudden changes in the throttle will trigger a response from the sound system. Could be a tower comm announcement, could be whistle.
Dispatcher, train is moving. Over. Roger that. Have a good run. Out.
The great thing about sequence control is it allows the locomotive to play through some of its sound features without you directly commanding it. As you adjust the speed control features up and down, the locomotive will randomly give off grade crossing sequence horn and whistle blasts, tower comm announcements. As you begin to slow the locomotive down, the bell will come on and will stay on until the locomotive stops. A lot of interactive features that occur based entirely off of throttle responses. Now, this locomotive is also equipped with a feature that allows you to refill the water in the tender as well as the coal. And so to refill the coal and also to exit sequence control, we'll simply press the aux1 or straight arrow key and then the reset button on the touchpad. You hear the whistle, that tells you that you've left sequence control and we're back to manual control of the sounds. If I press and hold the reset button, I'll get this sound. Once I release the reset button on the touchpad, the coal loading sound stops and we get this announcement.
My coal's full. Over. Acknowledged. Out.
To add water to the tender, we simply press and hold the number 3 position or the steam release wheel in the number 3 position on the touchpad. You'll get this sound. Once we release that touchpad key, this occurs.
My water's full. Roger that. Out.
One more feature I want to show you about this locomotive is the shutdown sounds. This is done using the black circle in the center of the touchpad. I'm going to go ahead and press that now.
See you tomorrow, dispatcher. We're going to be out.
Now, once the locomotive goes through its shutdown sound mode, you will notice that the headlight, the class lamps, the cab light, and the smoke unit, as well as the sound system, turn off. And they will remain off until you address the locomotive again by pressing engine and its ID number. So in the case of this N&W Y3, it would be engine 20. And in the lower left-hand corner of the touchpad is an on-off icon. You simply press that icon. If you press and hold it, you'll get a crew dialog as the sounds start up. And if you press it quickly, the sounds will just start up without the dialogue. These Y3s are available at your dealer now, and we hope that you enjoy them.